Tansei, I'm Krisanachkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. Saskatchewan RCMP are looking for 2 suspects after a man was shot in a home in Red Earth Cree Nation. Officers were called to Red Earth late Saturday afternoon after they received a report of a shooting. On arrival, they found a man inside a home with serious injuries. He was taken to hospital. However, his current condition hasn't been made public. After an extensive search of the area with a canine unit and drones, a knife and a firearm was recovered. Police say they are now looking for 38-year-old Gregory Whitehead and 40-year-old Harvey Whitehead, both from Red Earth. They are facing multiple firearms and aggravated assault charges. RCMP warned if you see these men, do not approach them. Instead, call RCMP or Crime Stoppers. Red Earth is located about 360 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon. A First Nation on Vancouver Island has recently purchased land with the hopes to advance food sovereignty. The Snana'as First Nation west of Nanaimo recently bought 12.5 acres of agricultural land in Lantzville near the First Nation. Chief Brent Edwards says they plan to use the land to create jobs, grow food, and practice cultural activities. Previously known as Negrin Farm, the land was a dairy farm for 6 decades. The purchase will be completed by June 12th, and while the final price tag was not disclosed, the land was previously listed for $1.8 million. In a statement, Chief Brent Edwards said, "This land will allow us to reconnect with traditional growing practices, teach our youth, and create good jobs close to home. Our ancestors farmed these lands for generations. Today, we honor that legacy in a modern way." The family of a missing Saskatchewan man in Pelican Lake First Nation is pushing for answers after 2 men were charged with manslaughter in his disappearance. CTV's Laura Woodward brings us this report.
That he loved his kids.
Kibo Bear, remembered as a father who loved spending time with his 2 sons.
He'd take them to the playground.
The 30-year-old father was last seen on Pelican Lake First Nation on January 22nd, 2024.
That's the last place she's seen her son, was at her house.
I want justice. I want Kibo. I don't know how many times I've cried.
RCMP are now treating Bear's disappearance as a homicide, charging Theron Thomas and Ian Carter with manslaughter. Thomas says the 2 men charged are considered Bear's cousins. She says the close family ties on Pelican Lake are making the case especially difficult for the community.
I don't want my community to be split apart because of something that the police are saying. I want them to give us hard evidence that they had reason to charge these 2.
Thomas is also calling for an RCMP-led search of the First Nation and nearby Chittick Lake. In a news release issued last week, RCMP say investigators have followed up on all information received regarding Bear's possible whereabouts. RCMP say officers have conducted ground and aerial searches and interviewed dozens of people.
We conducted quite a few ground searches with sometimes there's only 2 of us.
After one of the community-led searches in the summer, Thomas says someone fired gunshots at Bear's house. RCMP tells CTV News the described incident is unrelated to Bear's disappearance. Police say investigators are committed to finding Bear to provide his loved ones with closure. Anyone with information is asked to contact RCMP or anonymously call Crime Stoppers. Laura Woodward, CTV News, Saskatoon.
A number of First Nations in northern Quebec have handed out eviction notices to 11 forestry companies who want to operate in their territory. The notices are calling for the immediate removal of forestry workers and equipment from unceded Cree territory following the Quebec government's proposed Bill 97 on forestry reform. If passed, the bill would create priority forest management zones for logging. The First Nations are putting up teepees to remind the Quebec government and the loggers they are on unceded land and forestry industries cannot control, plan, and cut trees without consultation. Bill 97 was introduced on April 23rd, and the Assembly of First Nations calls it surprising and disappointing, adding the bill cannot bypass First Nations people. A state of emergency was declared this past weekend in Providence, a community in northern Quebec, after a fire burned down a residential property last Saturday. The home was destroyed, but no occupants were harmed. In a statement published by the Quebec regional government on behalf of Mayor Lucy Kalingo, she said the situation was handled with difficulty due to extreme weather and a limited amount of water. The community has been dealing with issues of water distribution for weeks. A state of emergency was declared largely due to a major break in the pipeline supplying water that happened in March. The emergency declaration statement says the issue stems from a lack of adequate infrastructure and that Providence does not have capacity to alleviate the water supply crisis. Peter Atavami, president of Nunavut's legal representation Makiyavik, said an investigation will now be launched into the matter.
We contacted the government of Quebec, contacted the Quebec regional government to find out what's going on. So there'll be an investigation what actually happened, because we want to know why this happened. Was it a shortage of funding? Was it a lack of vehicles? What happened? Because it's unacceptable that a community of 2,000 people doesn't have proper water service or sewage service into their homes, because everything has to be trucked in. We don't have aqueduct system like south of us. We rely on water truck. These are our lifelines to have water and have our sewage pumped out by trucks.
The water emergency there has already closed the community's nursing station, leaving some patients having to be evacuated south. And the lack of access to drinking water has brought the school year to an early close. Earlier this March, we reported on a shooting in Fort Providence, Northwest Territories that killed one person and critically injured two others. RCMP have now arrested a suspect in that investigation. 22-year-old Christian Cogswell of Surrey, British Columbia was arrested in Kelowna on May 15th by RCMP officers executing an unrelated search warrant for the Surrey Police Service. Cogswell is now facing multiple charges of murder and aggravated assault. He is set to be tried in Northwest Territory. However, no location or date has been announced. As we previously said, Cogswell remains in custody. Previously on March 15th, one man was killed and two others were seriously injured following a triple shooting in Fort Providence. At the time, RCMP said the incident was linked to the local drug trade. The Dayludina Council in the community of Lower Post in northern British Columbia is enforcing a community lockdown to curb rising violence and drug activity. The Casca community of 280 people is located about 10 kilometers south of the BC-Yukon border. Only residents of Lower Post there, immediate families, and designated employees are allowed into the community at this time. Unknown vehicles will be stopped and directed to leave, and residents who host known drug dealers or violent persons could lose their housing. Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling says there's no immediate threats to public safety, but the lockdown is a proactive measure to help make the community safer.
Even just the notice, putting the community that, there are eyes out there, not just by chief and council, but by every community member, that, if there are illegal activities happening, that there are eyes on you. We are reporting license plate numbers, suspicious activity, and really working hand in hand with the local RCMP detachment to do what we can as people that just want a safer community.
And that lockdown will remain in effect until further notice. When we come back, we'll tell you how the Moosehide Campaign is helping Indigenous men in Ontario. Stay with us. Welcome back. With Indigenous women and girls experiencing disproportionate rates of domestic violence, the Moosehide Campaign aims to address the problem by engaging men to take action. A campaign launch in March recently took place at the Sault Ste. Marie Indigenous Friendship Centre, and APTN's Mike McDonald was there.
Domestic violence is a community issue.
A small group of people marched in support of the Moosehide Campaign, which is a day to reflect, learn, and commit to ending gender-based violence and is centered on the role men can play to achieve that. Earlier, people gathered at the Indigenous Friendship Centre for presentations on gender-based violence. Corey McLeod runs the Indigenous Friendship Centre's Kije Anishinaabe Neen program, which reconnects Indigenous men with their culture.
Seeing how the colonialism, the residential schools, the taking of the land, being treated as subhuman has had its impact in the families, the women and children, and obviously the men. The men have forgotten their role, and the men are starting to pick up their roles today. And in doing so, they need to pick up the culture.
A square of moose hide is worn as a symbol of a person's commitment to safety and respect for women. McLeod says many Indigenous women fleeing abuse make their way to the city from the reserve and often face challenges getting help.
Those supports aren't there, that leaves them very vulnerable. So as men, we really need to step up and be protective and advocate for more shelters, more places for women to have that resource when they come into the cities. And nations need to really step it up on their prevention for domestic violence and within their own nations, within their own reserves.
Stand up within me, stand up and be free. Free from pain, free from shame.
Rebecca Wabigoon was among those taking part in the Moosehide Campaign March. Wabigoon's song is deeply personal, and she felt it was appropriate for the day.
My younger brother and I, we wrote it together on one day. We just seen my journal notes and decided to put a little tune and melody to it. The song resonates with that today is, well, it says to stand up and be free from pain and free from shame, so it speaks for itself.
According to data from Stats Canada, around 14% of Indigenous girls reported experiencing physical and sexual abuse before the age of 15, while domestic violence rates are 3 times higher for Indigenous women than non-Indigenous. Mike McDonald, APTN National News, Sault Ste. Marie.
Now to tell you about a story regarding a non-profit group on Vancouver's downtown east side that is helping the community in a big way. APTN's Tina House reports.
You come off the elevator, you'll come into our reception area. You'll be greeted by our lovely receptionist. This is our lounge area where people that we support come and wait for their counselors to come and get them. We have a meeting room in here where we hold a lot of our staff meetings.
Watari, which means little bridge, was created in 1986 and has 2 locations based on Vancouver's downtown east side. Heather Scarf is the executive director and says she is proud of what the organization does.
We have Sanctuary Health, where we assist women and children and families that are undocumented or have precarious status. We help them with all kinds of supports there. We counsel and support women and children as well with those that are fleeing domestic violence. We have a health and wellness center at another location on 320 Alexander Street. That's our wellness hub and our food hub. So we love food. Food is our love language. We send out thousands and thousands of meals from that location.
And it's a busy day here at Watari's commercial kitchen, where over 300 meals a day are made for residents nearby who have mobility issues and need nutritious meals delivered to them. Every week, they also give out hampers of groceries to those that need a little extra help, including a program to help migrant farm workers.
We educate them, we support them with needs, we support them with counseling, because it's so important to take care of the people that prepare the food that goes on our table. So we make sure that we take care of them as well. We go out to about 80 farms weekly, and we also support with judicial system supports with downtown community courts.
Watari offers a drop-in center where clients can get a meal, have a shower, and do their laundry. Sharing circles led by elders is also a big part of what they offer. And tonight, they're holding an event to honor the Moosehide Campaign, which raises awareness to stop domestic violence.
This organization employs staff, volunteers, and peers that all have the same heart. We all walk in love. We all have a helping hand that extends to every need. We have diversity and inclusion, and we have dignity and respect for every person that walks through our door.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
We now want to tell you about this week's new web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, what should Minister Mandy Goldmasty's priorities be? She is the new Federal Indigenous Services Minister and the first Indigenous person to hold this specific portfolio. Should her priorities be child welfare, water, or housing? Go to aptnnews.ca/polls to have your say. Coming up after the break, a sit down with the director-producer of Star Walker. Stay with us. On the east, Fredericton 8 and sun, Halifax 10 and sun. Cartwright 1 and partly cloudy, Happy Valley Goose Bay 6. Quebec City 13, St. Jovite rain and 10. Toronto partly cloudy and 10, Peterborough 12. 7 in Big Trout Lake and sun there, Sioux Lookout 10. Puckatawagan 11, Thompson 11. 10 in Gimli, Dauphin 10. 5 in Regina, showers in Saskatoon at 6. 10 in La Ronge, Meadow Lake 6 and rain. High level 22, Peace River 20. Lethbridge 16, Calgary 14. 14 in Tofino, Cabell River 16. Prince Rupert 12, Prince George 15. Whitehorse 13, Watson Lake 15. 23 in Fort Simpson, Wapee 18 and partly cloudy. Fort McPherson to Colville Lake 6. 4 in RV at Chesterfield 4. And Resolute 0, Arctic Bay 3. Thanks for staying with us. Over the next 2 weeks, the Inside Out Festival will be celebrating 35 years of unlocking queer cinema in Toronto. The annual film festival of 2S LGBTQ+ films will also play host to the world premiere of Starwalker, a film that is about an indigiqueer two-spirit callboy who is introduced into the world of drag. Corey Payette, a member of the Matagami First Nation, is the director, writer, producer, and composer of Starwalker. We spoke to him earlier this week. Here's that interview. Corey, thanks so much for being with us and congrats on the film. Can you tell us a bit about Starwalker?
Well, Starwalker is a musical that I wrote and directed, and it's set here in East Vancouver. I live in East Van, and it's a contemporary love story about an indigiqueer two-spirit person who discovers drag. And basically through that discovery, they're able to find a new chosen family. They're able to find a way to express themselves and to connect with their, identity in new ways. And it's really just a lot of fun. It's a really hopeful musical that I think is what we all need right now.
Very interesting. As we mentioned, you're the writer, producer, director, and composer of this film. Is this a very personal film for you? Is this something you wanted to complete and get out there?
It is. It's something that I've been dreaming about for so many years. It's really an offering to my community, to people everywhere as a way of expressing my own self-acceptance, really recognizing that there is so much love and joy within the queer community, and that really we serve such a unique purpose in filling out each other's circle. That we come to our community in a way with sometimes a lot of baggage, but then what we find together is a new sense of home. And so that was really important. And a lot of my other musicals in the past, they've dealt with a lot of really harsh and traumatic subject matter. And I wanted to put something out there that was joyful and that really celebrated our resilience, and that no matter all the things that we've put through, when we connect with ourself, our community, and the things that make us unique, that's the way forward, and that's the way to really truly celebrate who we are.
Yeah, no, I love those messages. All of those are very positive in nature. Starwalker was originally a musical stage production. What was it like to bring it from the stage to the screen?
It was a real act of joy throughout. So basically how we did it is that we staged it as a live stage show, and then once we closed that, a couple days later, we adapted it for the screen. And so what was great is that where we premiered the stage musical was at the York Theatre on Commercial Drive in East Vancouver, but the whole musical is set in East Van. So basically we just stepped out of the doors and set it in our community, in this neighborhood that is so iconic and is such a staple in terms of Indigenous communities, queer communities, and that also has a very special nod to indie drag performance. It's not what you see in the glitzy television programs. It really is a more rooted and cultural experience that we were looking to share.
Finally, Corey, what do you hope people take away from the film?
Well, I really hope that people love the music and the characters, but also that they take away this message of the work that is, when you accept yourself and when you deal with all of the complexities of, you know, our history, the way forward is through expression and through sharing songs, sharing stories, sharing dances, and using your voice for something good. That's the whole narrative is this character who is a two-spirit drag artist who finds their voice through drag and is able to speak out politically about what they see and about what the changes that need to take place, and really see their role as being that truth teller and really, you know, giving voice to perspectives that are not often heard.
Finally, really quickly, tell us where audiences can see the film and when.
We're having our world premiere at the Inside Out Film Festival in Toronto on May 23rd at 6:45 p.m. This is at the TIFF Lightbox in Toronto. Our first time in this kind of massive scale and festival, and I'm just so thrilled to celebrate the immense work that all of the artists have put in to this film.
Well, a big congrats again, Corey, to all your hard work, and finally everyone gets to see it. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Miigwech, thank you so much.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday already. We're back in a few hours with more stories for your evening newscast. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hi miigwech masicho. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.